these poor girls lead here, nor should I think their position a very secure one. Their poverty, however, is a safeguard to a certain extent, and there are few robbers in this country in the style of Morales. We were tempted to stop here and take a bath, in consequence of which it was dark when we set off for Morelia. The horses, unable to see, took enormous leaps over every little streamlet and ditch, so that we seemed to be riding a steeplechase in the dark. Our gowns caught upon the thorny bushes, and our journey might have been traced by the tatters we left behind us. At length we rode the wrong way up a stony hill, which led us to a wretched little village of about 30 huts, each having 10 dogs on an average, according to the laudable custom of the Indians. Out they all rushed simultaneously, yelping like 300 demons, biting the horses' feet, and springing round us. Between this canine concert, the kicking of the horses, the roar of a waterfall close beside us, the shouting of people telling us to come back, and the pitch darkness, I thought we should all have gone distracted. We did, however, make our way out from amongst the dogs, redescended the stony hill, the horses leaping over various streamlets that crossed their path, turned into the right road, and entered the gates of Morelia without further adventure between 9 and 10 o'clock. Morelia, 11th. We have passed the last few days very agreeable in this beautiful city, seeing everything worthy of notice, and greatly admiring the wide and airy streets, the fine houses, the handsome public buildings, but especially the cathedral, the college, and the churches. It has also a fine square, with broad piazzas occupying 3 of its sides, while the cathedral bounds it to the east. There is a crowded market in the plaza, and a fine display of fruit and vegetables. The population is said to be a little upwards of 15,000, but one would suppose it to be much greater. Living and house rent is so cheap here, that a family who could barely exist upon their means in Mexico, may enjoy every luxury in Valladolid. The climate is delightful, and there is something extremely cheerful in the aspect of the city, in which it differs greatly from Toluca. We received visits from various Morelians, amongst others from Don Cayetano Gomez, the proprietor of San Bartolo. We went one evening to the Alameda, a broad straight walk, paved with flat stones, shaded by fine trees, under which are stone benches, and bounded by a low stone wall. Several ladies were sitting there, whom we joined, and amongst others, a remarkably pretty Poblana, married into the Gomez family. The Alameda is crossed by a fine aqueduct of solid masonry, with light and elegant arches. We drove to the Paseo, a broad shady road, where we met but few carriages, and the same evening we went out on foot to enjoy the music of a very good military band, which plays occasionally for the amusement of the citizens. It is not to be supposed that, when Mexico can boast of so little society, there should be much in a provincial town; besides, the city has the pretension of being divided into cliques, and there are first people and second-rate people and families in our set, and so on, so that some of the ladies being musicians, one set will get up a concert, another a rival concert, and there not being a sufficient musical society to fill 2 concerts, both fall to the ground. There is a neat little theatre, but at present no company. Some of the houses are as handsome as any in Mexico, but there is no city which has fallen off so much since the independence as Morelia, according to the accounts given us by the most respectable persons. We had a visit from the bishop, Señor Portugal, one of the most distinguished men here, or in fact in the whole Republic of Mexico. A man of great learning, gentle and amiable in his manners, and in his life a model of virtue and holiness. He was in the cabinet when Santa Anna was president, concerning which circumstance an amusing story was told us, for the correctness of which I do not vouch, but the narrator, a respectable citizen here, certainly believed it. Señor Portugal had gone by appointment to see the president on some important business, and they had but just begun their consultation when Santa Anna rose and left the room. The Minister waited, the president did not return. The time passed on, and still the Minister continued expecting him, until at length he inquired of an aide de camp in waiting, if he could inform him how soon the president might be expected back. "I hardly know," said the officer, "for his Excellency has gone to visit Cola de Plata (Silver Tail)." "And who may Cola de Plata be?" said the Minister. "A favourite cock of his Excellency's, wounded this morning in a fight which he won, and to whose care he is now personally attending." The bishop soon after sent in his resignation. Accompanied by several of our friends, including one of the canons of the cathedral, we visited that splendid building the second day of our arrival. It is still wonderfully rich, notwithstanding that silver to the amount of 32,000 marks has been taken from it during the civil wars. The high altar is dazzling with gold and silver; the railing which leads from it to the choir is of pure silver, with pillars of the same metal. The two pulpits, with their stairs, are also covered with silver, and the general ornaments, though numerous and rich, are disposed with good taste, are kept in order, and having nothing tawdry or loaded in their general effect. The choir itself is extremely beautiful, so also is the carved screen before the organ, the doors of the first being of solid silver, and those of the other of richly carved wood. There is also an immense silver font, and superb lamps of silver. We particularly admired some fine paintings, chiefly by Cabrera, and especially a Madonna and Child, in which there is that most divine expression in the face of the Virgin, the blending of maternal love with awe for the divinity of the Child. 4 of these paintings, it is said, were sent here by a Spanish king as far back as Philip II. These 4 are colossal in size, and are finely painted, but little cared for or appreciated, and placed in a bad light. We were shown 2 saints sent from Rome, loaded with false jewels, but carefully preserved in their respective shrines. All the holy vessels, and priests' dresses and jewels, were taken out for our inspection. The sacramental custodia cost $32,000, and the richest of the dresses $8,000. There is a lamb made of one pearl, the fleece and head of silver, the pearl of great size and value. We toiled up through winding staircases to the belfry, and it required the beautiful and extensive landscape spread out before us to compensate us for this most fatiguing ascent. The bells are of copper and very sonorous. The canonigo pointed out to us all the different sites which had been the scenes of bloody battles during the Revolutionary War. The facilities for obtaining provisions, and the mountainous character of the country, are amongst the causes that have rendered this province the theatre of civil war. The padre afterwards took us into a large apartment, a sort of office, hung round with the portraits of all the bishops of Michoacán, one bearing so striking a resemblance to our friend Don Francisco Tagle, that we were not surprised to find that it was in fact the portrait of one of his family, who had occupied the episcopal see of Michoacán, and below it were the Tagle arms, referring to some traditionary exploit of their ancestors. They represent a knight killing a serpent, and the motto is Tagle que la serpiente mató y con la princesa casó. Tagle, who killed the serpent and married the princess. The same evening we visited a lady who possesses a most singular and curious collection of works in wax, and more extraordinary still, they are all her own workmanship. Every fruit and every vegetable production is represented by her with a fidelity which makes it impossible to distinguish between her imitations and the works of nature. Plates with bread, radishes and fish, dishes of fowls and chile and eggs, baskets full of the most delicious looking fruit, lettuces, beans, carrots, tomatoes, etc., all are copied with the most extraordinary exactness. But her figures show much greater talent. There are groups for which an amateur might offer any price, could she be prevailed upon to offer these masterpieces for sale. There is a Poblana peasant on horseback before a ranchero, looking back at him with the most coquettish expression. Her dress perfection, from the straw hat that half shades her features, to the beautiful little ankle and foot in the white satin shoe, the short embroidered petticoat, and the rebozo thrown over one shoulder. A handsome Indian selling pulque and brandy in her little shop, with every variety of liquor temptingly displayed in rows of shining bottles to her customers. The grouping and colouring perfect, and the whole interior arrangement of the shop imitated with the most perfect exactness. There is also a horrid representation, frightfully correct, of a dead